Hello, and welcome to Sleep Stories with the Slumbering Seagull. These videos were made to help you sleep. So wherever you are, underneath the sun or underneath the stars, get relaxed and comfortable and let yourself drift away. That next morning, Andrew woke up to the cooing of a dove at his window. "You again? Why don't you just leave me alone?" Andrew was irritated as he remembered how embarrassed he felt when he was pushed down the night before. And to make it worse, he had to endure Turu furiously yelling at him. At least the night ended on a better note. Andrew replayed the conversation in his head. He sighed, holding back tears. "I wouldn't make a good soldier anyways," he thought. He got up and shooed the bird away. The bird fluttered away. He returned to his bed to lie down for just a few more minutes before getting ready for his classes. "Don't give up," whispered a female voice. He jolted up on the bed. What was that? He wondered. "Andrew," called John. "Come outside and play." The sound startled Andrew, but he quickly relaxed when he realized it was only John. Andrew opened his window and responded, "Sorry, John, I can't play until after my lessons." It was a beautiful day out. Quite a shame not to be making the most out of the wonderful weather. Carl's little boy John looked about 8 years old, likely close to the age Andrew was when he lost his father. He missed both his parents very much, but felt a huge amount of gratefulness towards Duru and his wife. He knew they did the best they could, and Andrew always felt he was treated as though he truly was their son. He felt bad about the trouble he would get himself into from time to time, and for wandering off so often. He just felt so lost sometimes. The mountains were a place of peace for him, where he felt refreshed. "I want to do something of value with my life. Maybe helping others like I helped Carl was enough. If I hadn't been there that day, who knows what would have happened to them," he pondered. They weren't on a path many liked to travel because of the mudslides and frankly unpleasant state of the road. Yet, as Andrew fell deeper into thought, he couldn't help but feel a sense of longing in himself for something more. He wasn't able to pinpoint exactly what. He snapped out of it and then began to get ready to leave. Andrew never asked further about Carl's experience of losing his home and who knows how many loved ones. He could tell talking about it was very painful for Carl. He recognized the grief in Carl's face at different instances when he looked at his son from afar. Andrew deeply wished that he had met Carl and his son under better circumstances. Carl and John were staying in Turu's barn until Carl was able to find steady work. Turu's wife helped to watch John, and Carl worked on different projects around the house. She was outside, reading in a chair. You better hurry, Andrew, or you'll be late, honey. Yes, ma'am, Andrew replied. While walking to the education center, Andrew heard the female voice again. You mustn't give up, Andrew. He searched around looking for who was talking to him. He looked up and saw the dove from earlier. Yes, Andrew, it is me. I'm trying to help you. My name is Olive. Don't give up. They need you. You must fight for your town and the kingdom. Andrew couldn't believe his eyes. The dove was able to speak, but not with its mouth, but somehow instead it was capable of speaking straight into Andrew's mind, or rather, to his heart. What's going on? How are you able to talk to me? Andrew took a step back, his heart pounding. Even though he was in such a state of absolute disbelief, there was an undeniable calming familiarity about the dove. It's because of the prayers, Andrew. Your father prayed to God, and God is answering those prayers. Andrew's heart continued to race. There's no way. The dove fluttered down to a closer branch. I know this is hard to believe, my dear, but here I am. I promise to help you through this battle. I will not give up, no matter what. You wouldn't believe the crucial and extraordinary things you are destined to achieve, even if I told you. You must hold on to hope, Andrew, and never let go of it. Then the bird fluttered away. At that, Andrew knew what he had to do next. He began running. He darted past people, buildings, and trees. He was running as fast as he could, straight to the king's castle. Hey, where do you think you are going? Please, Andrew said to the guards, I need to see the king as soon as possible. Why? Anyone going to see the king must have an appointed slot and registered in advance. Okay then, how do I register? They pointed down to the hall to the left. Andrew saw a large book filled with signatures and a desk a few feet away from the table with the registration book. Andrew took a few breaths and reminded himself to at least attempt some composure. Hello, is there anyone I can speak to? A staff member hurried in. Sorry, young man, how can I help you? Asked the gentleman. Yes, sir. How would I go about gaining an audience with the king? Oh, okay, yes. Please fill out this document and then turn it in to me when you're done. Okay, at least that's progress, thought Andrew. Andrew quickly filled out the sheet and turned it in. He stood nearly on the tip of his toes with anticipation. The staff member read the document carefully. Oh, I see. You are of the Ota household? Yes. Would you say this matter is urgent? Mr. Speckle. Yes. Okay. Please, wait here. I believe we can squeeze you in today. I will reach out in a moment to my head manager, and they will check with one of the elders. All right? All right. Thank you, sir. No problem. I'll be right back. A few minutes later, the man returned with a smile on his face. Okay, I will stamp a copy of your paperwork here, and you must show the stamped approval to the guards. Thank you. The clerk handed Andrew his stamped document. Best wishes, Mr. Speckle. Bye-bye now. Andrew showed the stamp to the guards, and they nodded and stood aside. The castle was enormous and extravagant. It was obvious the kingdom had prospered greatly under King Hiroto. Andrew made his way up a large flight of stairs and finally to the grand hall of the king's throne room. It seemed a meeting was still being held when Andrew walked in. Another guard stared him down. Who are you? Andrew put the paper up in front of his face. Speckle? What business do you have with the king? The guard spoke protectively but listened, waiting for an answer. Andrew grew nervous. He had trouble bringing out the words. It didn't help that the guard had such an intimidating appearance. Well, the guard took Andrew's silence as a reason for suspicion. Speak at once, or I will have to escort you out of here myself, he said as he began to draw his sword. I'm sorry. I've never spoken to the king before. My name is Andrew Speckle, and I have a request and sort of a favor to ask the king. Please, may I speak with him when this meeting is over? Stand down, said one of the elders. I approved his entrance today. He is of the Ota household and said it was urgent. Come closer, Mr. Speckle. Don't worry. The room fell silent. All eyes locked on Andrew. He thought, I don't like being in the center of attention like this. He pushed the embarrassment down and approached the king's throne. That's far enough, said the official. Andrew stopped. Andrew? The king said, stunned to see him. Is everything all right? Sire, Andrew fell to his knees and bowed in respect. Please forgive my interruption. I have come here today to ask for a favor. And what is that favor you speak of? I humbly ask that you would allow me to train and, if deserved, join in the ranks of your army as a soldier. The room mumbled with a mixture of laughter and frustrated remarks to Andrew's words. The king lifted his hand, and the room was swept back to silence. Andrew, rest assured that you are always welcome here, but why come here to ask this of me when you can sign up any time at the very same place you registered to gain allowance into my throne room? I understand, sire. There's one central reason why I came here before you today, instead of just enlisting as you've recommended. Andrew paused. Go on, said King Hiroto. When I enlist, I will break the heart of the man who took me in as a child. Andrew's voice swelled up with emotion. When I had no one else to help me. He cleared his throat and took a deep breath, refusing to shed tears in a place like this. The king saw Andrew's anguish and knew that this was probably the hardest decision this young man had ever made. Everyone other than my guards leave now for the day, and we will reconvene tomorrow. the king commanded. The room quickly emptied, other than a handful of guards that stood at attention. The king arose and stepped down from his throne, walking over to Andrew, who had not moved from his bowed position on the floor. "Get up, Andrew." "Sire?" "Get up and stand." Andrew did as the king said. The king inspected Andrew for a moment. "I will write an official letter that says that I have personally requested that you join the army in conclusion of receiving high praises about you from one of my lieutenants." But Andrew, no matter what Turu desires for you, you are no longer a child. You are your own man now. Andrew looked down at the floor. "You don't have to write any letters, sire. I won't ask you to make an excuse for me. I can talk to General Turu myself." The king gave out a gentle chuckle. "I'm not making up stories. The lieutenant that watched you practicing with the soldiers the night you snuck into the army blockhouses." Andrew's eyes grew big. "My apologies, sire." The king smiled and laughed again. "Apology accepted. Just don't let it happen again. I understand. I got into quite a bit of mischief around your age. Anyways, Andrew, the lieutenant said you held your ground very well for an unofficial fighter. Turu has certainly rubbed off on you. But I do have a question. I'm sure you know about Barend and his army of vandals. This is serious, especially now. Explain to me your motivation for becoming a soldier." Andrew wasn't sure how to phrase it. "I've gotten a clear message from a dove. I know that sounds preposterous, but..." "Really?" the king chimed, amazed at what Andrew was telling him. "I had a dream a few nights ago, in fact, that a dove flew into my bedchamber with a gift, an olive branch in its mouth. It seemed to be telling me that despite the hardships our kingdom is facing, somehow everything will be all right in the end." The king's countenance shifted. He became more focused and determined than before. He grabbed Andrew by the shoulders. "I have been praying that hope would come, and I believe today it has, because of you. There is still much to figure out, and I don't wish to place an unbearable weight on you." He embraced Andrew with all the warmth and cheerfulness one exudes when reunited with a long-parted dear friend. But something of great significance has commenced. I'm sure of it. The next thing Andrew knew, the king handed him a letter stamped on the inside and outer cover with the king's official seal. In a joyous tone, the king thanked Andrew for his time, openness, and willingness to serve the kingdom of Afia. He agreed to return the next day to begin his training. Andrew walked home thinking of a way to break the news to Turu. As he walked, he kept a lookout for the dove, but it was nowhere to be found. Surely I wasn't just imagining things, he thought. Things have gotten pretty far. The king's convinced that this is the right thing for me to do, but it still worries me if Turu will ever approve of this or not. Andrew eventually stood at the front door of the cozy cabin that he had come to call home. He took a deep breath and walked to the door. Tiro was home, helping his wife set the table. Carl and John would be joining them for dinner soon. Tiro's wife greeted Andrew and welcomed him to sit at the table after washing up. Tiro smiled at Andrew. "How was your day, Andrew? How were your classes?" Andrew put down his belongings, the letter tucked away in his satchel, and began washing up. It was a very interesting day. Good. Well, rest now. We're having your favorite meal tonight." "Oh, great." Andrew was excited about chicken pho, but had to tell Tiro the news as soon as possible. Carl and John walked in and greeted Andrew. Tiro passed out bowls of hot, delicious pho. "There's plenty, everyone, so please eat up," Tiro said. John blew on his spoon before taking a big bite. This is so good. Thank you so much." After taking a few bites, he looked up at Andrew. He looked like he needed a bit of cheering up. "I think this is now my favorite too." "I'll be starting school tomorrow, Andrew, just like you," he continued. John was an only child and saw Andrew as a cool older brother. He was so glad to have found a friend in him. "Maybe after my lessons tomorrow, we can play catch outside." John's face lit up, craving for some fun. Andrew didn't want to let John down. He forgot he had already put him off earlier that morning. "I would like to, I really would, but I'm not sure I'll be able to, John." Carl got after John. "Don't hassle him, son. If he has other things to do, then you must let him be. I'm sure there'll be children your age to run around with." John's face changed to a slight frown, but he did look forward to his father's point of meeting other kids. Tiro spoke up. "He doesn't mean anything personal, John. He's been taking advanced courses this year. The semester will end soon, and he will have a short break from his lessons then. Maybe that time will be better. Right, Andrew?" Andrew couldn't hold back his words. "I enlisted today." Everyone froze. "What?" said Tiro. "I went to the king and..." "What?" Tiro's voice exploded with outrage. Andrew looked at his bowl, taking deep breaths. Tiro stood up. He paused for a second. Andrew looked up and saw a range of emotions fill Tiro's face. Anger gave way to concern. He lowered his voice to a more controlled level. "Forgive me, Carl and John. Please excuse me as I speak with Andrew outside." Then Tiro stomped out the door. Tiro's wife stared at Andrew in disbelief, then nodded at Andrew, pointing to the door. Andrew got up, but just as he passed Tiro's wife, she grabbed his hand. He could feel her quivering in concern. She stood up carefully and hugged him. She was getting older in years, her hair white now. Tears trickled down her face. Tiro and his wife already lost their only son to the battlefield many years ago before becoming Andrew's guardians. Was severe sorrow about to rip into their lives once again? Her heart was pounding. She felt the dread attempt to overtake her, but remembered her dear friends as she held Andrew's face in her hands. Andrew's wonderful parents. Honey, your parents, they were both extremely brave, she said through tears. You've simply inherited their courage. No matter where the battles take you, please, just come back to us, okay? Just try. Andrew couldn't speak, but he was able to nod and then hurried outside, not wanting to keep Theodore waiting too long. Theodore's wife wiped her tears and presented a smile to Carl and John. Please don't let us ruin your dinner. Please finish your food. Yes, ma'am. Don't worry too much, ma'am. He seems like a fine young whippersnapper. I'm sure he'll be all right. Mrs. Ota, can I give you a hug? Asked John. Yes. A few more tears ran down her face as John hugged her. Outside, Turo was standing looking at the stars. I can't stop you, Andrew. He spoke with his back still turned, gazing at the night sky. I know you don't want me to do this, but I know that I have to, sir. My son lost his life trying to save others. He saved many lives that day. I miss him every day. Your father helped me through when I could hardly stand after that. He was a great lieutenant, and he was even greater friend. Turo finally turned around. Andrew could tell he had already shed many tears. You're not a little boy anymore, said Turo. I just want to be sure you understand the risk you are taking. I know that I have much to learn. Know that I don't enlist out of arrogance and recklessness. I was ready to follow the path you wanted for me, but I know there's something different for me. Turo sighed. I don't want you to be miserable because you never walked the path you believe you are truly meant to. Sir, this is my home, and I must do everything I can to protect it. I can't stand aside and watch this kingdom be torn to pieces. Unrecognizable, like what has happened to Carl and John. I won't be fighting to make a name for myself or for some type of glory. I must fight for you and Mrs. Ota and Carl and John. You are the reason I would risk everything because you showed me staggering amounts of love when you took me in and took such great care of me consistently for 10 years, regardless if I had anything to give back to you in return. You've only ever wanted the best for me. Tears fell down both their faces. Please, don't let me do this without your blessing, sir. Turo rushed over to Andrew. You have my blessing, son. Yes, you are a speckle, but listen to me. You are my son too. They embraced. You have been a wonderful son. You are my blessing. And I am sure of your parents being proud of you if they were here. I am so proud of you. Don't you ever forget that. Okay? Andrew broke. He didn't realize how much he had needed to hear those words. The fear of disappointing dissipated. Turo looked up at the night sky again. Andrew, the stars appear small, like specks. But the truth is, each one is giant. The sun is a star too, Andrew. Andrew chimed in, recalling one of his classes. A star more than 100 times larger than the Earth's diameter. And there are even larger stars out there than it, Turo added, continuing to gaze in fascination. Remember who you are, Andrew. He looked into Andrew's eyes, still with a hint of concern for him, but Andrew knew he couldn't help it because he loved him. Rest now, Andrew. I'm sure the king wants you to train immediately, especially after he got the report from Lieutenant Thompson about your undeniable talent, as he put it. What? I mean, yes, sir. You read the report? Turo nodded hesitantly. I just didn't want to see what was right in front of me. They went inside and finished the meal. Carl and John were done and said goodnight by the time they came back inside. They shared more hugs and smiles and tears. Yes, Andrew thought to himself, this is worth fighting for.